Right, so Bioshock Infinite by Irrational Games and published by 2K. This game is set in 1912 in a place called Columbia, but it's not like the actual normal Columbia. It's like a made-up Columbia, and this place is it's like a flying city basically. You play a guy called Booker, who has been sent to Columbia to go and rescue somebody basically. I mean, you don't find that out at the start of the game. Like, you're kind of wondering why you're there, like what are you doing, and then all of a sudden you find out that you're there to rescue somebody. I mean, if you watch some trailers you probably know that anyway, but I didn't quite get the gist of that straight away. So you start off a lighthouse, which is, as far as I can remember, the same as all the other games. But from this time, instead of going underground, you're going up in the air. Like, I wasn't expecting that, so that was quite a good change from the other games. It's not the same. It's not the same place as the old games. I mean, it's kind of like it's the same universe, but it's set in a alternate sort of, I don't know, time or something. It's got similar sort of themes as the other games, but although it seemed a bit more kind of like modernised. I think that might have something to do with like the way the buildings look and stuff. But I just thought it looked like a bit more of a modern game, as opposed to just all this steampunk stuff underwater and that. It's a bit difficult for me to go on about the story for too long without giving loads of stuff away, because basically from the start of the game, if I explain anything, it would just be spoiler central, so I won't bother actually going too much into the actual story, because that's half the point of playing the game. The one thing I will say is it's got some pretty like taboo subjects in it. Like there's a bit of like racism and just not very nice stuff towards like Irish and black people. And some people might be offended by that, but it's part of the story, and I suppose it's part of history, so that's why they've included it in the game, because it happened basically. But I was a bit shocked by some of the things you see, but it doesn't take away from the game, and I was kind of half expecting it, to be honest. So let's move on to the gameplay. Okay, so the gameplay. If you've played any of the other ones, Bioshock 1 or 2, then it is pretty much the same. I mean, it's a lot more like the second one than it is the first one, in the way that you can only hold a certain amount of weapons. You can have a weapon in one hand and fire basically like magic stuff. I mean, it's called vigors in this, but it's basically just magic that you launch at people, similar to the second game. I'll just go through some of the points that I enjoyed about the gameplay. The environments are a lot bigger than you used to in the older games. I mean, you can basically like scale buildings and stuff, and jump on these rails that take you from place to place. And sometimes in the levels, like you've got to use these to get around quite long distances. And it's a bit confusing sometimes, because like you'll click on one and you don't know where it goes before you click on it, and when you're trying to do the arrow that tells you where to go, kind of like Dead Space style, when you tell that to like show you where to go when you're on the rails, the arrows disappear too quick before you actually see where you're supposed to be going, so it's easy to get lost in them. The locations are a bit more varied. I mean, it's not all just underwater stuff anymore. You've got all these buildings that are floating in the air, and everything's all moving around all at the same time. And some of the locations that you visit as well, I mean, there's big changes between like the Sky City, and you visit some other places as well, and we won't spoil the story in that, but it does add a lot more variety to the game than you used to on the older ones. The skylines that I mentioned earlier, I mean, they kind of like add a bit more like a dimension to the gunplay and stuff, because you can hook onto things and shoot down at people, and Um, jump on the rails when people are after you and stuff, and you can shoot at them as you're going along and stuff. And it does add a bit more to the game than just running around shooting and stuff. The shooting in the game definitely feels better than the older games. I mean, when you're shooting people and it actually feels like it's kind of like registering a hit on them, rather than the old games where it was you shot things and they were just like bullet sponge. I can take a million shots and I'm not going down and stuff. Like, you shoot people, it actually feels like it's doing something. And it's the same with the Vigors as well. I mean, you launch them at people and people go flying when they explode and stuff. The enemies seemed a bit smarter in this one to the last ones. I mean, when you're aiming at them and stuff, they'll try and hide from where you're shooting and stuff, and they'll try and flank you from the sides, but they give you kind of like audio, like they'll tell you that they're doing it, so you kind of know when they're going to run around you and stuff, so you can compensate and not hide behind something and wait for them to come and that. There doesn't seem to be any like slowdown in the game either. I mean, I noticed it on the last one where there was a lot of stuff going on with the water and that, and it like the game would slow down when all this water stuff was all going on. I mean, I played this on the PlayStation, so obviously on the PC you won't really have issues like this, but I didn't really notice any slowdown playing through the game at all. Now for the negative things that I've noticed in the game, the controls feel a bit sluggish when you're running, like turning and running at the same time. It kind of doesn't work, and you're trying to run away from something. There's a few scenes where you're chasing after the woman that you go to rescue, and she'll run off ahead, and you're trying to keep up, going around all these corners trying to see where she goes and that, but you can't really see where she's going because you're struggling with the controls to go around the corners when you're running. It's not really the same when you're just normally walking around and stuff, but when you're running you definitely notice it. The Vigors, or like the magic things that you have, I don't really think there's enough in the game. I mean, it's got probably the same amount that the last game had in it, but I was expecting a few more different things, and I don't know, being able to combine them and do other things would have been cool, but I suppose there's enough there to keep you occupied, but I just thought there'd be more in the game. It's the same with the weapons as well. I mean, you've got two different sorts of each of the weapons, and that's not really enough in my opinion, considering there's only there's probably 12 or 15 different weapons in the game, and there's two different versions of each, so it's the same with the magic stuff as well. It doesn't really take away from the game, but I just thought there would be a few more since it's like the newer version of it. Some of the enemies as well, when you're trying to look for them, will be a bit difficult to see because you're like, where are they? Where are they shooting me from? And especially the turrets as well. You can't really see. There's like a big red light that blinds you when you're looking at them, and you can't really see where to shoot when you're trying to kill them and that. So you just can't aim at the middle. But other than that, I mean, the gameplay was good. It kept you interested through the game, and I think it's plus points of the game, to be honest, as a whole. Now we'll go on to the enjoyment of the game. Okay, so the enjoyment of the game. I mean, it kept me interested throughout the game. The story's good. It keeps you wanting to know what happens next and stuff, which is always a good thing in games nowadays. Like, there's nothing worse than having a bit that you're well into, and then you've got to slug for the next 2 hours through shooting a load of people, just waves of enemies and stuff, and then you see the next part of the story. It's like, it's constant, so it does keep you interested throughout. One thing I will note is it's got no multiplayer in it, whereas the last game had multiplayer in it. This one hasn't. So if you're buying it expecting it to have multiplayer in it, then you can be a bit disappointed because it's not there. Whether it's something that they'll add at a later date, I don't know, in DLC or something, but I don't know. The game clocks in at around 10 to 12 hours, depending on how you play it, and that's on normal. There is an extra difficult, which is kind of like extra hard, where it limits you to you saying that one of your weapons is like your primary weapon, but when you get into a situation where you can't use that weapon or can't find that weapon, then it means that your other weapons are really underpowered. So it brings a bit more sort of strategy to the gunfights and stuff, instead of just running around with, I mean, for the most of the game I'd run around with the shotgun and the machine gun, and that pretty much took care of everything. But obviously using this mode, like, you won't be able to do that, because certain weapons aren't as good as the other ones, so you'll be looking for the weapons that you've suited your character to, basically. I think overall, like, it's definitely worth a purchase, especially if you've played the older games. You will enjoy this one. But yeah, I'd say go out and buy it. Right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.